Good evening. My name is Anaí Quintero from Coepia Foundation. We are currently in an interview cycle based on the concept of feminine leadership from Marcela Lagarde, which rises from the gods. In reference, the new feminine leadership models coming from a different empowerment style. I have the pleasure this evening of interviewing a woman that I know her commitment to the defense of human rights. It's Victoria Pearman, Bermuda's Obus person. Hello, Victoria.
Hello, how are you, Anaí?
Fine, fine. Okay, as a first point, I'm going to read you her impressive resume. Okay? Victoria Pearman was appointed as a Bermuda's second ombudsman effective March 17, 2050. She is the former president of the Caribbean Ombudsman Association and was elected Caribbean Director and Regional President for the Caribbean and Latin America of the International Ombudsman Institute in 2019. Prior to her appointment as Ombudsman, Ms. Spearman worked as a litigation attorney from 1993 to 2014 with 16 of those years at Juris Law Chambers, where she was a founding partner. She was called to the Bar of England and Wales by the Honorable Society of Lincoln in 1992 and to the Bermuda Bar in 1993. Ms. Spearman has a varied background in a criminal, civil, administrative, and constitutional law. She served from 2001 since 2003 as a government senator and junior minister. Ms. Spearman is a trainer, arbitrator, and mediator. She has served as a member of the Bermuda Bar Council on the board governance at the Bermuda College and chaired the board on her alma mater, the Adult Education School. She taught at the Bermuda College as a part-time seminar leader with University of Kent LLB Bermuda College Program. Ms. Spearman holds a Bachelor of Art degree from American International College, Massachusetts, USA, and Bachelor of Law degree from the London School of Economics. She also served on various public boards and tribunals, as well as the Justice Review Committee and Law Reform Committee. Ms. Spearman has trained several pupils and law students who are now practicing at the bar in government service and in the corporate sector. She is the proud mother of the 18-year-old Simeon. Impressive, impressive, Victoria. Um,
Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank you for agreeing to this interview, as I consider the kind of work you carry out to be very important to make visible. Why don't we start by telling the public how did your professional career first start?
Sure, my pleasure. Well, I suppose I would like to start by saying that mine was not a direct route.
Mhm.
Some of us take long ways, and I took the long way. So um, I I came about it, I think, the long way, but it was always my dream.
Mhm.
And that started at a very young age. That started when I was maybe 7 or 8 years old, and we used to read the newspapers. I used to read the newspapers with my aunt and uncle, my great aunt and uncle. My
Mhm.
mother was a very hard worker, and she worked day and night. When she worked, they cared for me, and I was always taken, I suppose, by the drama or
Ah,
coverage of the court cases. And
okay.
at that time, there were several, I suppose, women pioneers in the law, because you will know that
Mhm.
that was not an area that women were always welcome in. And it was always exciting to read and try and understand the defense that
Mhm.
was being fought, very often for people who didn't particularly have a lot of rights were not particularly seen as important, and it was always inspiring to see these female champions
Oh, okay.
making sure that rights were taken seriously. And sometimes they themselves would have to endure fighting for their own rights in the courtrooms, because that didn't come naturally to some of the male practitioners and judges. And so I think that's where it all started for me. And I must say that there were times as I grew older where I had second doubts as to whether or not it would happen. In school was not always easy. I was I suppose, willful, or in Bermuda we say headstrong youngster.
Caribbean.
Sometimes a little bit rebellious.
Okay.
But I've always been very, very fortunate and blessed to have very good teachers in academic life and in working life. So I left school. I didn't complete my high school education. I left school and I actually went and worked in the hotel industry. And I think there was a part of me that was starting to give up whether it would have really happen. But we find education in all walks of life. And working in the hotel industry was its own form of education. There is no other area, I think, where you get to meet such a very group of people. You meet people from all walks of life. And you have to find a way to communicate and connect with them. So I think even though it was an academic, it was a good start. So eventually, I didn't actually start my higher education until I was about 25 years old. And I think even though there was a part of me that felt that was quite late, it also is a part of education to come to it when you hopefully are a bit more mature. And so I think those two things have actually assisted me in my professional development. I think it has given me a different insight than if I had gone directly through the school system and straight to college and university. And I think sometimes knowing about struggles, knowing what that feels like, actually helps you with some of the qualities that we're going to talk about later on tonight when it comes to do with empathy and caring. Because, they have a saying in my side of the world, she who feels it knows it. And I think that's actually helped me in the law, and hopefully it helps me in my role as an ombudsman. But eventually, once I did complete my academic education, and I came back to Bermuda and started my legal career, I originally started with a large firm that I had the fortune of receiving their scholarship. And I stayed there for a short while, but I must confess, there's always been a part of me that reaches out to the people. And so I left the large firm and joined a small firm. And thereafter, I found the opportunities in a smaller firm that sometimes you might not get in a larger firm. So it's more hands-on. And yes, so that's the way I came to the law. Like I say, not straightforward, a long way around, but that's the way I came to the law. And I feel that it's important that people do what they have a passion for. So I remember at one point wondering which area, of the law would be the best. As a student, you think to yourself, when I finish all of this,
Oh,
I want to be able to get a job. I want
okay.
to be marketable. I want to be successful. And I remember reaching out to my mother, calling my mother from England on one late night of study, and
Mhm,
telling her how confused I was about which area I should choose.
mhm,
Which area should I choose, Mom? Which one will give me the best advantage? And my mother wasn't a particularly educated woman. She never went to secondary school, but she was in fact one of the wisest people I've ever known. Um, May she rest in peace. But she said to me, she gave me probably the best advice you could ever give anyone. She said to me, she said, what you must do is you must be prepared. Make sure that you study and that you are prepared.
okay.
Be dependable. Um, be honest and care about people.
Mhm,
And if
mhm.
you do that, then you don't have to worry about having a job. People always will need this. And yes, as I say, that was one of the best pieces of advice that I've tried to maintain throughout
Mhm,
my working life.
mhm. Impressive life, Victoria. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, Victoria, you are currently the ombudsperson in Bermuda. Can you tell us a bit more about your experience as a woman in this particular position?
Well, it's quite interesting because until I had to get ready for this interview, and I'm very humble to have been asked to participate in this, but I had never really consciously thought
Mhm,
through being a woman ombudsman. I'd never done that. Maybe because we've only had two ombudsmen in Bermuda, and both of us were women. Also, in the work that I've done in the region, you've heard that I was the president of the Caribbean Ombudsman
mhm,
Association, and now I have the honor of serving as the regional president of the International Ombudsman Institute for the Caribbean and Latin America.
mhm.
And it's a great opportunity and
Yeah.
allows me to meet with so many of my colleagues. And it just so happens that so many of those colleagues are women. And so until, I had to try and think about the types of things that we were going to share tonight, I'd never stopped to think, wow, is it remarkable to be a woman and an ombudsman? I hadn't done that.
Okay.
And I think the first time that came home to me um, in earnest was,
Mhm,
before COVID, when we could all travel. I had the pleasure of attending the International Ombudsman Expo. This was a first
mhm.
of its kind um, conference and seminar and expo combined, and that was held in Abuja, Nigeria. And so
Okay.
it was amazing. And there, one of the organizers, the visionary, Dr. Victor Ayani, who's a well-known scholar in ombudsmanship and governance oversight bodies, um, this was part of his vision to highlight the work of women in this field.
Okay.
He invited colleagues, both male and female, to submit names and photographs of women who have served as ombudsman in the past and who are serving now. And I
Mhm.
believe on that occasion we counted maybe 300 who had served as ombudsman, so leading in their offices. Of course, if you think about the many women who also work in ombudsman offices like yourself, in addition and in support of ombudsman, then that number is very, very much larger. But
Mhm.
seeing seeing the impact that women have had in this area, in those numbers for the first time, was quite extraordinary.
Yeah.
Because From what I know, there hasn't been any great campaign work that we do to encourage women in particular, or to recruit women in particular. It just seems to have happened that way, and I hope that building on that experience, building on that information, we can do work to look into why it is that women have found their way leading the charge very often in our institution.
Okay.
I don't want to speculate too much, but there's a part of me that would like to believe that it may have something to do with the way that ombudsmen are appointed, because as you know, the process is meant to be very open, transparent, and you look at qualifications and merit.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the type of work where you have a male network to be able to advance the causes of friends and people who feel like them.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's quite extraordinary. I would say, though, that even though I haven't given the depth of thought to being a woman and ombudsman that probably I should have, it is the case that the work that we do, I believe, calls for a lot of the feminine leadership styles that are advocated. And so, ombudsmen by definition have to be listeners. Ombudsmen by definition have to be listeners. You're not going to be very good as an ombudsman if you think you have all the answers.
Okay.
And I also think that we have to be flexible. So there's, at the heart of the institution, there's the need for things to be changed, for things to be adapted. And I believe that some of the feminine leadership skills that we speak about touch on some of those issues. People have to feel that they're valued. And very often when people come to our office with complaints, they may feel like they're at the end of their rope. They may feel like they've been completely disrespected and disregarded by the society. But the information that they bring back to us is so valuable. It actually allows us to know and understand and hear. So I think, as I say, I wouldn't hold myself up as a poster child for female.
Very tired sometimes.
Absolutely. But I think it's important for us to say, though, Annie, that just because we talk about it in female leadership terms, that doesn't mean that it's only applies to women.
Yeah.
Because we all know very many of our colleagues are male, but who approach their work and approach their leadership style with a lot of those feminine leadership qualities that we espouse.
Okay. That's very interesting point. I love it. Can you tell us in your own words, what does the new feminine leadership means to you?
So, as I said earlier, a lot of what we do as ombudsman is to try and restore balance, also to build and preserve relationships.
Yeah.
A lot of the work that we do means acting as an intermediary sometimes between the people and their government officials. And so things like empathy and conciliation, nurturing, that's the type of important elements,
Mhm.
the female leadership style, I think, that we're espousing. So the reason that that it is so important is that we're trying to restore what is not correct. And I believe that
Mhm.
we have too much pushback from people who say that the way that we have been leading, not just in the ombudsman world, but generally
Mhm.
in our countries, in our communities, in our region, globally, the way that we have been espousing what leadership looks like and what success looks like
Mhm.
has been very male dominated. And there's a time and a place for those characteristics. There
Mhm.
leadership characteristics. There's a time and a place when you need authority, heavy authority, when you need someone kind of leading the way and saying this is the way it needs to be done. But we've gone, I think, too far the wrong way, and it hasn't helped us. And I think our society is suffering under the weight of that.
Mhm.
So that is why I believe it's so important
Mhm.
to try and get back to a better sense of balance,
Mhm.
better sense of where we need to be right now. And I know that we were talking earlier about the term new leadership, new female leadership style. And I hope you don't mind if I say I'm not sure how new it is, because I believe that it has been there for a long time.
Mhm.
It has been recognized for what it was, but I think that women naturally are leaders
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
our various organizations and our communities and our societies.
Mhm.
See that. So there almost is a disconnect because in our communities we call on women to be leaders in some roles,
Mhm.
and then in others we feel that it's inappropriate for them or it should be left to a more male oriented style.
Mhm.
We've always been leaders, and it's necessary, I think, to have both both
Yeah.
working together. I certainly am not a person that would advocate that we have a feminine leadership style to the exclusion of all others.
Mhm.
And I'm certainly not advocating, nor do I understand the foundation to be advocating
Mhm.
how we should have all women leaders, no men leaders, and that we just take it all over. That would actually be replacing what is wrong now with more wrong. It really is us teaching
Mhm.
a way to do things.
Interesting your point, balance and equality in women's
Yes,
human rights. Very
yes.
interesting your point.
Thank
And
you.
I understand you because all the time maybe in Caribbean uh, dominate males and is difficult, you know. This balance is maybe more time difficult. Um,
Yes, I think so, and I think that it would be a huge mistake,
yeah, yeah.
if we didn't recognize what it is that we're actually talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Necessarily talking about women, we're talking about those characteristics and qualities and leadership styles
Yeah,
that are usually associated with women, such as compassion and empathy. Intuition is a big one.
yeah.
I know that nowadays people are giving more respect,
Mm-hmm.
intuitive feelings, and maybe this is where the foundation
Yeah,
advocates
yeah,
from things that come from the gut.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. I love this point, balance. You do you what I mean? I love. Okay, why do you think makes so important to understand this new kind of feminine leadership?
So I think it's very, very important because it's clear, as I said before, that what we're doing right now isn't working. You know, the suffering that people are enduring, the disregard and disrespect for vulnerable people, for people who are not well off materially, for people who have economic, financial, physical challenges. This type of dominant leadership style that says the winner takes it all, or the strong dominates the weak. That it not only is it not humane, but it's not sustainable. It doesn't work. It doesn't last. And I believe that most people would accept that there's time to do things in a different way, and time to open up, so that we get the best of everything, best of all of it.
No, I love your point. It's very interesting and very impressive. And what will be your message for the younger female generation in this new leadership, female leadership? What do you think about it?
So, again, I feel that the message that we give to young women by way of encouraging them must also be the same message that we give to young men, because the message is valid for both. And what we actually want, we're hoping that we can develop a society, a way of thinking, a culture that is respectful of both men and women's leadership styles. We want women to feel empowered, but we want men to feel empowered as well. And we want women leaders who are not afraid of exercising power and authority, but we want men who also come to respect and see it as natural and normal as breathing for women to be in those positions. So I think there are a lot of messages and lessons to be learned. I know that I've had the pleasure during the course of my my trainings. I've been very, very fortunate, and I would say one of the highlights of my experience, my professional experience, both in law and in the ombudsman world, has been to be able to train young people, both men and women. But I have to remember when I say that, is that training is actually a two-way street. So when you try and train or teach, you do it properly, you have to learn. So all of these things that I think are important for us to tell young women, like for them to believe in themselves, not to shy away from leadership, not to feel as if they don't have what it takes. All of these things are lessons that we have to share with everybody. And I also think that that's the only way that we are actually going to get to a point where we don't have to keep having these conversations and trying to make the point for feminine leadership style. I think our region, and we touched on it earlier, is of particular interest because of all the regions, in my view, there aren't too many that take rights as seriously as we do. And that may come from the fact that we've had quite a history. We've had a hard history of people having to fight for their very humanity. People having to fight just to persuade people that they're full-fledged human beings. In Latin America, you've had a horrible fight trying to protect yourself from autocratic leaderships, from leaderships that tell people, they don't matter, and that it's okay for them to be violated and subjugated. That's the background and history of our region. Women in that struggle have played a very, very important part, but they haven't really, it hasn't been valued in the way that you would like to think it would, because I know in my country, we've had nothing but a strong women leaders in the political and legal fields, and throughout the region we will see this. So it's very hard that we get to this point now where it's almost like it's something new. But I think the other piece is for young women and all of those who are aspiring to do things better, that they reach out and they find someone who can help them learn some of the lessons to share. I think, and I think we shouldn't just wait for the young women to do that. We who have, been through it should reach out ourselves and find someone to share the knowledge with.
Yeah.
I also think it's important that we don't get very confused about power and our leadership style, because as I said before, there is no one leadership style that fits all situations. And there may be times when that soft female energy is inappropriate.
Yeah.
If something's really being violated, then there may be a different approach that's required. But I think it's important to share what we've learned and be open to learning. And I also think it's important that we have to make sure women in particular understand that it's not selfish to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
On the airplane, they have one of the early safety announcements that they said was, before you help somebody else beside you, put on your own oxygen mask first. And sometimes with women, it feels like we're being selfish if we're looking after ourselves first. But we can't really look after ourselves and others if we don't value ourselves. And I think one of the legacies we have to deal with is women being treated as if they are of less value. I mean, we know that can't be true, because when women stop doing the things that women do, the society crumbles. So we know we're valuable, but I'm not always sure that we take that lesson on board, that we take that to heart ourselves. And also in the work that we do, very often when women come, the issues that they come with are far more complex because it impacts so many other people. Women sometimes, I used to jokingly say that women didn't have the luxury of standing on a soapbox and preaching and advocating. They when everybody else stopped talking, they had to deal with the reality and pick up the pieces left from all the rhetoric. So I think that women need to take care of themselves. That's a hard one, and I must say I'm not always as good about it as I should be. It's a lesson that I'm learning, but it's a really big one that I want to advocate. And also to remember that we're multifaceted. that, you know, we have many roles. We're sisters, we're friends, we're daughters, we're mothers, we're teachers, you know, we're in relationships. We're multifaceted. And sometimes people think that we're supposed to be super women. I have a young cousin who talks all the time about, you know, taking off your superwoman cape, just laying it down and just, you know, resting for a while, doing something that gives you comfort, finding someone else to share with. We ought not to be afraid of being vulnerable, and we need to teach each other, both young women and old women, both men, old men and younger men. We need to be able to teach each other that sometimes we're just vulnerable.
Bueno, incredible career, incredible life. I admire you, and I'm so happy to talk with you, to talk women like you, empowerment in Caribbean, because I'm from Caribbean, I'm from Panama, and I admire you. I admire the women like you, and I'm so glad to talk with you this afternoon. And I only said thank you so much for your time and for sharing your experience with us this evening, Victoria.
It is my pleasure, and I've enjoyed it. Thank you for your patience. I must confess, I do like to talk a lot, and that may come from a career at law. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm humble, and I wish the foundation continued success.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.